being in tune with my true self. Wanted some advice about understanding who I really am. My friend asks me, who am I? And I couldn't answer the question. Okay. Who are you? So your friend asked you, who are you? And you couldn't answer the question. Think about how crazy that is. Still, you're what, 20 years old? 19. Around 19, 20 years old. And somebody asks you, who are you? And you don't even know what to say. What does it go to show about society as a whole and how it's literally programmed you to live your life a certain way? Because if you can't answer the question, who am I? Then you have to question, what have I been doing for the last X amount of years of my life? And then when you question yourself like that, who am I? You'll notice what the mind does is it avoids that question entirely. You might be oscillating between these narratives of who you think you are, these characteristics, these traits of who you think you are. You can't pinpoint one. And then you'll just move on to the next thing that you're doing with your day. So even when your friend asked that question, you probably wasn't pondering on it for too long. And there's a reason for that. There is a reason for that. Your mind, I always tell you, the ego is a survival mechanism, and its job is to deter you from any sort of pain. It's to deter you from going in any direction that could potentially lead to its annihilation. That is the job of the ego mind. It deceives you. It will paint very pretty narratives and illusions to keep you in this container, to keep you from questioning your identity, so you can keep on surviving in the world. I said this on a previous post yesterday. I said, the first 20 years of your life, all you're doing is just interjecting ideas and beliefs in order to be tolerated in your environment and to survive your environment. That's all you are. This is what the ego mind does. It needs to create you an identity for you to survive. So it begs the question, does free will exist? Do we have conscious control of our actions? Or is it predetermined? It's all predetermined. We like to think that who we are was so magnificently constructed by us consciously. That's a scam. Who I am now has nothing to do with who I actually am. This identity, Marvin Wayne, who you see here, it's not who I am. This is purely an identity that my ego has created for me to survive my environment. We are products of our environment. That's all we are. Human beings have not adapted to this level of intelligence and consciousness by accident. It's not by accident that you are who you are right now. You are a survival machine. And you don't know who you are because the ego mind will not allow you to understand who you are. Because if you was to tell your unconscious right now to reveal everything about me, all the things that you hide from me, reveal it all to me right now, you'd have a heart attack. It would be too psychologically taxing. You couldn't handle it. You couldn't handle all the truths of who you are. You couldn't. That's why the mind hides it from you. You got to understand how the psyche is organized. It's so interesting. We have the ego. The ego is who you think you are, right? The ego. Dylan Arnold, I'm a bodybuild. I'm 19, 20 years old. I work at this place. I have this girlfriend. This is my mate. I'm from East London or whatever. That's the ego. That's Dylan. That's who you are. That's who you think you are. Then we have the persona. So the persona, you can think of the persona as the intermediary between you, the ego, Dylan, and the outside world. So the persona is essentially the mask that you wear, right? This mask is what helps you survive your environment. You've been slowly curating this mask for the last 20 years, adjusting it, reorganizing it, depending on the situation you've got in. Subconsciously, your accent, the way you walk, the way you dress, your hairstyle, what you're into, that's the persona. It's not who you are, it's a persona. And the reason why you don't know who you are is because you've conflated the persona for your ego. Everybody believes who they are at face value is who they actually are. That's the deception of the mind. That's how the ego works. It doesn't want you to know who you are. It's going to tell you that this is who you are. This survival machine that we built for the last 20 years is who you are. Do not question it. Keep on going. Because if you decide to look inwards, and really discover who you are, it's going to be too painful. That's why people avoid truth. So you have the persona and you have the ego. And then behind the ego, we have what we call the unconscious, the subconscious mind. You might have heard of this phrase, the unconscious, the subconscious mind. Within that subconscious lies everything that you have ever learned. Every truth, every trait, every memory. The unconscious mind is infinitely times bigger than your conscious mind. You can't integrate your unconscious mind. When I say integrate, you can't get access to the entirety of your unconscious mind because it's just too much information. You literally explode. Within the unconscious, we have what we call the shadow. You might have heard the term shadow, right? You might have heard if you know who Jordan Peterson is, you might have heard him talk about being a monster, learning how to control that monster within. What he's talking about there is the shadow. The shadow is a concept that Carl Jung developed. It's the unconscious mind. It was originally developed by Sigmund Freud, but Carl Jung developed the concept of the unconscious as the actual shadow. So the shadow within it contains everything that we repress, everything that we're completely unaware of. I'm talking about traits, memories, everything that we deny, that we repress within ourselves, all the things that aren't seen as politically correct, right? Because like I said, the first 20 years, all we're trying to do is survive. So it's us against our environment. So we are only going to integrate the things that are going to help us survive. And that makes up our ego identity. And then we disregard anything that doesn't contribute to our survival within the unconscious mind, the shadow. We repress all of those traits that don't work in your environment. We forget certain memories that are going to trigger emotions that aren't going to constitute to our survival. That's why it's very hard for you to remember certain trauma. Your ego mind does that for a reason, because if that trauma was to come to ego consciousness, you wouldn't even be able to handle it, to manage it. How is that going to constitute to your survival in the present? So it represses certain memories. There's certain things you can't remember. You might feel anxious in certain parts of your day. You might watch a TV show, you might meet a certain person, and physiologically you'll respond to this person. You're like, I don't like this person. Why don't I like this person? Why did I feel weird when I watched that movie or this or that? Consciously, you don't know, but that stimulus has triggered that trauma that's been repressed within your shadow. So when you meet somebody and you get a weird feeling or whatever it is, you might react to them differently. Something happens to you physiologically and you don't know why. The reason you don't know why is because your ego mind has repressed the memory, repressed an emotion that is very familiar to the stimulus that you're feeling from this person. So the majority of who you are lies in the shadow. There's a lot of phrases, there's a lot of terms for the shadow. We have obviously the shadow, the subconscious mind, the unconscious mind, the alter ego, right? The alter ego. So you've got your ego, who you actually are, your identity, Dylan Arnold, and then you've got the alter ego. So the alternative, the complete opposite to the ego. An extreme example of the shadow concept is back in the day, it would have been like Jekyll and Hyde. If you heard of that test, he takes this formula and it turns him into like the complete opposite to who he actually is, this monster, this hyper extrovert, rude, hyper masculine, strong version of him. That's kind of an extreme example of the shadow. But another good one would be Bruce Banner and the Hulk, right? What is the Hulk? The Hulk is the physical manifestation of Bruce Banner's trauma. If you watch The Hulk 2003, The Hulk 2003, that movie, perfect depiction of the Hulk. Perfect depiction of the shadow. Because Bruce was traumatized at such an early age. He was a toddler. How many of us remember all of our memories as a toddler? We don't remember shit. But our body always keeps a score. Our eyes are the mirror to our soul. Bruce remembers all the trauma that happened then, but has been shoved to his unconscious. His ego has shoved all of that trauma, all of those memories into his unconscious, his subconscious, his shadow. That doesn't go anywhere. So when you repress these content, at some point in your life, they are going to want to become actualized. They are going to want to be attended to because it's still a part of you. The shadow, the unconscious, is still a part of you. Spiritually, we don't want to be fragmented. When you repress a part of you, you're fragmented, you're not whole. There's always going to be dysfunction. And metaphysically, we're always going to seek some sort of equilibrium. That's just how it works. We need balance. So at some point in your life, the contents that you've repressed within your shadow are going to want to be contended to. So what happened when Bruce had that accident? He repressed that infant, immature, scared, angry part of himself for so long, it manifested into the Hulk. That's why the Hulk is so childlike. He can't really speak, right? Because the trauma happened when he was a child. Does that make sense? So infant-like. That's why it's like he's having a tantrum all the time. That's why he's so angry, because he was so young. A toddler doesn't know how to regulate their emotions. And because he's repressed the Hulk for so long, it's made it stronger. The longer you repress something, the stronger it becomes, the more it persists. The Hulk is Bruce Banner. So he was repressing the Hulk for a very long time. And it was only until he slowly started to accept the Hulk as a part of him and rectified his trauma, that's when he could fully integrate that part of him. So he integrated his shadow, and then he became Professor Hulk. In the Avengers movie, he was both. He was integrated, he became whole, because he fully accepted who he was. He was no longer in that part of him. So that's an exemplary example story of the shadow. A lot of who you are stems within the shadow, the unconscious. We're not taught this because there lies your power. You have to understand the shadow doesn't just contain parts of you that you dislike, that you repress, that you reject. It also inhibits your latent potential. So the pinnacle of who you can be also lies within the shadow. That's crazy. Because remember, it makes sense, right? The first 20 years, all that's happening is we're just being indoctrinated and programmed to become what? Slaves. Work for somebody else, work a job. Don't introspect, don't question yourself. Don't become more than what you need to be. So from young, we're already repressing our creativity. We're already repressing our potential. And that gets shoved into the unconscious, into the shadow. So of course, our utmost potential is going to lie within the shadow. That's why when you try to actualize yourself in the world, when you're trying to build your business, when you're trying to build your physique, when you're trying to achieve more, you run into what? Those inner voices that tell you you can't do it. You run into imposter syndrome. You don't think that you are the type of person to get this work done, to achieve X goal. You succumb to self-sabotage. That's not you. That's the slave programming that's been indoctrinated within you for the last 20 years. So for you to truly integrate your shadow, you need to push past those impediments. You got to understand that potential of whoever you can be is within that shadow. So a part of you building your business and becoming who you can be is in and of itself integrating the shadow. So integrating the shadow, the parts of you that you repress, that is a part of you. The more you start to understand them, the more whole you're going to be, the more grounded you're going to be as a man. All of this work is, it's not external work. It's not bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is all superficial. It's all external work. We're working on the surface, what people see at face value. That's what bodybuilding is. But understanding who you are before the world told you who you were meant to be, that's done in solitude. That's the inner work. That's the work that people don't see. That's the work I've been doing for the last 3 years nearly. People don't see that. And it's harder than any fucking bench press set you can do. It's harder than any exercise you can do in a gym. Understanding who you are, because you don't know who you are. So when you start to turn inwards and introspect and start asking the questions, what belief systems do I currently carry? What belief systems make up my current identity? That's where the real pain comes. It's too painful to ask those questions because it literally threatens the survival of your identity, of your ego. Who you think you are is not who you are. Like I said, it lies in your shadow. So a good way to understand who you are, because it's a lifelong journey. We can work on self-knowledge from now to the end of our lives. We're never fully going to understand who we are. There's not enough time for that. But you can do a lot of work. A good way to understand who you are, like I said, is to delve into the unconscious parts of us. And your shadow actually does communicate with you. There's a lot of psychodynamics. So psychodynamics are essentially just the ways that the subconscious communicates with you. There's a lot of ways that it does this. One of the ways is a psychodynamic called projection. So when your shadow, your unconscious mind, knows that you are not able to handle certain truths about yourself, it will project those traits or truths onto an external object, onto somebody else. You are what you hate. If you see a fat person and you can't stop laughing at them, or you're making jokes about them with your friend, and you're just drilling into this person about how out of shape they are, it's more than likely because you was fat and out of shape, and you hate that version of yourself. You hate that version of yourself so much, you literally just shoved it into your unconscious mind so deep that you can't even remember that you was fat and out of shape. So the way for the shadow to seek equilibrium, because the shadow is always going to want to balance itself out. The more one-sided you are, the more one-sided your ego is, your identity, the heavier the shadow is going to become. When you're too one-sided and you haven't integrated, your shadow is eventually going to try and push contents, traits, things that you reject into your field of consciousness. That's what an intrusive thought is. When you are making jokes about this fat person who's overweight, your shadow is trying to communicate with you that you have yet to contend with this. Because that person is triggering you. It's triggering you. It's triggering something within your shadow. It's a part of you that you've repressed. So when you see that person, essentially you see yourself. So your shadow is going to want you to contend with that. Because you hate that part of yourself. It's repressed. You've become too one-sided to the point where you've forgotten that you was a fat person as well. So this identity is so one-sided, it's so dense, your shadow is going to overcompensate. So there's some equilibrium between the two structures. Does that make sense? So it's going to keep pestering you by projecting this content within your field of consciousness. You're going to constantly just be fucking picking on fat people. They're going to constantly keep triggering you because it's a part of you that you've repressed and rejected. So a good way to understand who you are is to pay attention to your projections. Pay attention to what you hate, what triggers you, what gets you annoyed. Because there's a partial truth in everything that triggers you. There's a partial truth in everything that you project. Your shadow is trying to communicate with you. That's one of the ways it's going to try, and like I said, maintain some sort of equilibrium between the two structures. So projection is one way that your shadow is going to communicate with you. Another way you can understand who you are and communicate with the shadow is a technique called active imagination. It's heavy. It is so heavy. You've got to be very careful with this. Your subconscious mind communicates to you via dream as well. You don't just have dreams for no reason. Dreams aren't just random. Your shadow will try to communicate with you in dreams, and not in the most rational, objective way. It will leave clues. It's like a puzzle. You might see an old teacher in your dream, or you might be all of a sudden on a boat with some random person from the gym that you've never spoken to. Your subconscious is going to communicate with you in so many different ways, right? But it's infinitely smarter than you. It is you. So it's trying to tell you something. So before you go to bed, literally speak it out loud. Show me. Reveal something to me that I can tolerate. Reveal something to me about myself that I can tolerate. You literally say that out loud before you go to bed, because your subconscious is doing overtime. It doesn't switch off. I guarantee you that night you're going to have a dream, and it's going to, I don't know what it's going to show you in that dream, but it's going to show you who you are. It's going to reveal something to you that you can tolerate. You have to have respect for your subconscious mind. That generally, just say it out loud, it's listening. It sounds crazy, but I've done this. It's mad. You have that dream. You wake up. As soon as you wake up, have your notepad. Write down exactly what happened in that dream. You might not understand it now, but you should spend some time trying to interpret that dream. What could that mean? What did that symbol mean? Why was that person there? Why did this person say this to me? Why was that building upside down? Weird shit, weird shit. You've seen Inception, right? You've seen how funky dreams can be in Inception. They mean something. They're never random. Use AI to help you interpret your dreams as well. So as soon as you wake up, write down everything that happened in the dream. You yourself try to interpret the dream, because you are a creative person. All of us as human beings, we've been programmed not to use our fucking brains, not to exercise our creativity. So throughout the day, try and interpret the dream for yourself. What did that mean? What could she mean by that? Write it down and then conversate with ChatGPT. Conversate with AI. AI will help you interpret that dream. Then you'll be like, oh fuck, so that's what that means. I didn't know that about myself. Oh, so that's why that person was there. This is all shadow work. They say shadow work. It sounds woo-woo, but You're just understanding who you are. That's all it is. You don't learn this shit in school. So dream interpretation is one way to understand yourself. Monitoring your projections is another way to understand yourself. And a third way to understand yourself is, well, trauma is a big one, right? Because all of our pursuits, all of our current dysfunctions are predicated on our childhood fundamentally. We're going to go over that in another video. But for now, what you can do at least twice a week at the end of the day or in the very beginning of the day, whenever you want to do it. And I spoke about this in the holistic deload video in the Bodybuilding 101 course. But you can attempt a philosophical meditation where you ask yourself three questions, three very important questions. What am I upset about? What am I angry about? And what am I currently excited about? Those three questions. I want you to spend at least 45 minutes spending time contemplating those three questions. It doesn't matter how small, how big, how embarrassing the answers to those questions might be. It's going to tell you a lot about who you are. For example, the things that you're upset about, that you're sad about. Remember, we feel this pressure to conform to this archetype of what a man is meant to be. And a part of that archetype is to be very stoic, to be very grounded, to be very impenetrable, to have this Arcanian mindset to where things don't get to us, where we're just completely emotionless and we just move on regardless, which is a good trait to an extent, but again, it's very fragmented, it's very partial. That whole way of being is very repressed, and with repression comes aggression and dysfunction. So you've got to pay that in mind. That's a complex that you have. That's one of the beliefs that you've interjected as an identity, to be cold, to be distant, to be very stoic. So when it comes to asking yourself, what are you currently upset about? A lot of the things that you're currently upset about is repressed. Because in the whole toxic masculine paradigm, you're only allowed to be upset about certain things. There are some very minuscule things that you deep down are upset about, but you've been gaslit into not allowing a chance to be upset about. Does that make sense? So, bro, like you might be upset about the way a girl spoke to you in year 8 when you was 12 years old or whatever, but because of all the influences in the manosphere, as a man, you're not meant to be thinking about these things. That's past you. Why are you upset about that? You need to make money. You need to build a physique, blah, blah, blah. So like I said, most of the things that you actually are upset about are going to be repressed. So you have to spend some time to really think about and dig deep into what things you're upset about and to disregard anything that gets in the way of that process. If you're upset about, it could be the smallest thing. It could be the most embarrassing thing. Write it down. Because that's a part of you. That's a part of you that you've repressed. Just because the country isn't being bombed and we're at war doesn't mean you're not allowed to be upset about being splashed by a car whilst you was walking on the pavement or anything seemingly minuscule. So spend time writing down the answers to those three questions. What am I currently upset about? What am I currently angry about? Or what am I currently excited about? That's going to help you dispense with all of the low resolution thoughts in your mind, because as men, we like to keep things bold in. Writing is thinking. It's the same thing. When you write down all your thoughts on paper, they become high resolution. You get the big picture. And then you can start plotting on how to rectify all of these things. So that's going to increase mindfulness, and it's going to force you to be more present with yourself. And you can only really understand yourself when you're by yourself. A large part of self-knowledge comes with solitude. That's what philosophy stems down. You know, if philosophy was to be predicated on one axiom, it would be know thyself. I mean, that's what Socrates said. And you can't really know thyself among the crowd. The shaman always sits outside the village, always, retracted of the noise. Like I said, when you're by yourself, you're going to be better able to discern between the voices that you've interjected from the outside and your actual voice. Because in your head, you've got a bunch of voices and you don't know where yours is. That's why you don't know who you are. But the fact that you even asked this question just goes to show how your levels of consciousness is increasing. Because it takes a certain level of consciousness to sit down and say, who am I? Because to ask that question is to be skeptical. To ask that question is to be skeptical of the voices that are currently in your head. A lot of people conflate the voices in their head for who they actually are. That's the majority of the human race. We're taught not to think for ourselves for a reason. So the fact that you're questioning who you are goes to show that you're on your way to freedom. You're on your way to escaping the matrix. To question. That's all it starts with. It starts with a thought. Who am I? Who am I? It's the most important question ever. So those are three ways that you can start to understand yourself. Monitor your projections, how your shadow projects. Your shadow also holds your latent potential. So you are going to project that potential onto other people. So, like I said, when you're inspired by somebody, that's within you as well. What did Kanye West say? If you're a fan of me, you're a fan of yourself. If you're a fan of me, you're a fan of yourself. You're inspired by the potential within you. So that's another way to understand who you are. And then you can be skeptical of that as well. Why am I attracted to this person? Why am I inspired by this person? You can start to contemplate that. Why do I want to do what he's doing? Do I want to do exactly what he's doing, or do I want to express a certain trait that he is expressing? Is that what I'm actually attracted to, or is it the thing that he's doing? This is all philosophy. This is all self-understanding. This is what you do when you're by yourself. You contemplate these things. So projection, start to analyze your projections. Number two, dream interpretation. So active imagination. Ask yourself before you go to bed, ask your subconscious mind, show me something, reveal something to me that I can tolerate. Have your dream, wake up in the morning, write down everything that happened in your dream that you can remember. Try to interpret what it is throughout the day, and then by the end of the day, head to ChatGPT and then let it help you interpret that dream and discover the hidden meanings behind some of the things that your subconscious mind has told you, has shown you, has implied. Number three, you're going to do your philosophical meditation. So you're going to ask yourself, what am I currently upset about? What am I currently angry about? What am I currently excited about? And you're going to spend at least 45 minutes once to twice a week going through that. So those are three ways that you can start to understand yourself. But self-knowledge is, boy, it's a journey, man. I've been doing it nearly 3 years, right? Starting with basic psychology, like I've just spoken to you. But the deeper you go down that rabbit hole, bro, it's literally like the Matrix. How did the Matrix start? Trinity first found Neo. The gang found Neo. And what did Neo say? You know it, don't you? There's something not right with what's going on here. What is the Matrix? That's what Neo asked. What is the Matrix? It's no different to asking yourself, who am I? So you're Neo in the Matrix right now. So it's up to you if you want to go down that rabbit hole and take the red pill. Because it goes far beyond psychology, bro. Boy, trust me, I know. You don't know how deep the rabbit hole goes. And I even got to hold myself back on speaking about certain things. Because everybody has to go through certain paradigms to reach certain realizations. The longer you delve into psychology, you're eventually going to bump into spirituality. But for now, just focus on those three things that I said. You're going to discover a lot about yourself. And still take your time with it. Take your time. Even with those three things, but it can be very heavy. Right? You're going to start seeing people, noticing your triggers, noticing your reactions, and start questioning why you are reacting and being triggered in a certain way. And you're going to link it to a past memory. Then you're going to understand, oh, so that's why I act like that. That's why I'm attracted to that person. So you're going to start to deconstruct and decipher your own ego before your very eyes. And you're going to become obsessed with doing this. So you're going to be constantly psychoanalyzing people. The more you psychoanalyze yourself, the more you psychoanalyze other people. So you're going to very much be in your head for a long time. And that can be very tiring. That can be very physiologically demanding. So you got to take your breaks. You got to train. Make sure you're still training. To understand who you are is to break free. Jailbreaking your own mind is painful. Deconstructing the self is painful. That's why nobody does it. That's why this work is not popular. Inner work is not popular. We all want to work externally, to be seen at face value. There's no depth. Because it's easier. It's easier to live in illusion. It's easier to live in delusion to who you actually are. That's what we're programmed to be anyway. So crack on all those three things and let me know how it goes, bro. We got the community here. So if you ever come across any sort of epiphanies or realizations or insights, bro, put them down. If you have certain dreams, bro, if you feel comfortable enough, drop them in the community post and I help you interpret them. This shit can be heavy. Like I said, it's very physiologically demanding and you have to take regular breaks. You have to take regular breaks, bro. And it is good to talk to people who understand. Like I said, don't hesitate to put certain things in the community post. I've been there, trust me. But that's going to be it for this video, bro. That's going to be it for this video. I can make this 2 hours, but we'll leave it there. And for anybody else who is trying to discover who they are, who is going down this rabbit hole, then join the community. This is more than bodybuilding. This is the inner work as well. Because we really do get in our own way. The only way you can do anything in this world is to understand who you are at the deepest levels. If you have currently been getting in your own way, if you're stuck, depressed, anxious, confused, lost, it's simply because you lack understanding into who you actually are. And in this community, we do the work into deconstructing who you actually are so you can become more grounded as a man and do what you need to do. Whether that's starting a business, building your physique, attracting the right woman. That's what this community is about. That's what it's going to be about. A holistic approach to masculinity. But brother, I hope this helped. Like I said, drop anything in the community posts. And if you have any more questions, I'm here, man. I'll speak to you guys soon. Peace.